a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
The dangers of secondhand smoke are well known. But what about secondhand aerosol, which is created when using e-cigarettes? Science already shows a secondhand aerosol can contain nicotine, heavy metals, and cancer-causing agents. Eliminating exposure to secondhand aerosol is an important step to keeping everyone safe. Breathe easier knowing the facts.
For help quitting, call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends, surprise parties, camps, birthdays. The same way you plan for the important moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, "My job is people, everyone is my business." But unfortunately, in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
This is your captain. We are going to be experiencing some slight turbulence. Please fasten your... Oh, hold on. Just got a video of my cat.
Imagine the pilot of an airplane was as confident as you are texting and driving. Seems kind of crazy when you put it like that.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Getting experience to jumpstart a meaningful career can be difficult, and education can cost a fortune. Luckily, AmeriCorps can be the solution. With AmeriCorps, you'll earn a stipend and education award while helping people. Plus, you'll gain professional skills and make connections to help you build your career. If you're ready to start a career you can be proud of, visit serve.nebraska.gov/service to find a program for you. Paid for by Serve Nebraska, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza. The big one. All the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
Sandhills Global is hiring. Check out sandhills.jobs for more information. Sandhills is looking to fill hundreds of new openings in sales, traveling support, software development, web design, and more. Sandhills has a professional culture and is fast-paced with a focus on growth, innovation, and leading-edge technologies. Career and internship opportunities are available at our global headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska. Apply today at sandhills.jobs.
Live from the heart of Lincoln, America, welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome into Ticket Weeknights. This will be the last live show we have. Again, just the last live show we have here for Ticket Weeknights. I am Harrison Arens running the board, and I'll be going solo all the way up until 10 o'clock. So again, feel free to join in on the show, 402-464-5685. And I'm going to be talking some NBA here. We got preseason games going on right now. Obviously, talk a little bit about the NFL as well. Before we get there, I will give you a quick score update for Thursday Night Football. We got the Denver Broncos on the road at Arrowhead playing the Kansas City Chiefs. And not much of a storyline. 0-16 right now. It's not looking good for the Broncos. They only got 99 yards of total offense compared to Chiefs 295. They only got 24 yards passing. Chiefs 222. The only spot they're close, 75 rushing yards to the Chiefs 73, but not a good start. Both teams, though, I will say they're both 2 for 7 on third down. Right now, Chiefs, though, they're just kind of able to keep chaining a lot more of those drives together, and it's just a bad year for the Broncos. Russell Wilson currently 7 for 11. They're only 37 yards, 1 interception. Mahomes has got an interception as well, but at least he's 21 for 30. He's got over 200 yards already and a touchdown as well. So again, I don't think that one's much of a shocker. I think most people were expecting a big Chiefs victory. A lot of people might even be surprised that it's only 16-0 at this point because that Broncos defense has been tough to watch. Offensively, defensively, just hasn't been a great year for the Broncos. Obvious, their record's indicative of it, only being 1-4. Really, really should be 0-5. That I still can't get over that Bears loss. Bears had it in the bag, just kind of handed it to the Broncos there at the very end. So really, you're looking at a team, when I look at the Broncos, they are lucky to not be 0-5 heading into 0-6 territory. Now, there's only about 6 minutes left to go here in the third quarter for Thursday Night Football. Again, Denver Broncos at Arrowhead facing off against the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes doing Mahomes things. Russell Wilson kind of having a Russell Wilson kind of year for him. Not great. We'll give you live updates on that game as it goes along. But again, we'll talk NBA, we'll talk some Husker football, and we'll talk NFL. But what I want to do on this segment is I want to find all the NBA fans out there, and I want you to give me your NBA team, and I will do my best to give a realistic expectation as to what I see for the ceiling of that team. I'll give you what I think the floor is, and I'll give you the ceiling as well. So obviously, being a Bulls fan, we'll talk about them, kind of just right off the bat. Looking at the Chicago Bulls, that's a team that they lost their starting point guard in Lonzo Ball. Kind of a team that you're looking to maybe be around slightly above 500 is where I'd put them. I think anything below 500 would be a little surprising. The Eastern Conference isn't necessarily a juggernaut. There's some good teams in there, but there's a lot of weak teams as well. Teams that you should be able to get wins over. You still have DeMar DeRozan, you still have Zach LaVine, and you still have Vucevic. That's 1, 2, 3 all-stars on the team. So for me, this is a team that it feels like a lot of people are expecting a bad year. I don't think it's going to be as bad as what most people are thinking. You still got 3 really good players on that team. You got some young players, and Kobe White, who, yes, he's been off and on, but still a good player to have. You still got Ayo Dosunmu, who's kind of going into his second year, might even be his third year into the league now, who's kind of showing some bright spots, still putting it all together. But it's really going to be, how good does this team look? And at what point are you looking at veterans like your Zach LaVine, like your Nikola Vucevic as a potential trade? Maybe you're thinking we go full-scale overhaul and we start moving some of these guys around to give ourselves a real shot at winning. I'll say it again. That the Lonzo Ball injury tied on to the Alex Caruso injury, tied on to the Zach LaVine knee problems, that was a Bulls team that was actually starting to put things together. And if health could have stayed on their side, I really do think they had an opportunity to make something happen. Whether they win an NBA championship or not, that's to be questioned. Even with that roster, that's probably something I doubt unless you get that insane DeMar DeRozan run, which he had in the middle of the season, not necessarily in the playoffs. It's kind of a team that, you probably do think about rebuilding unless you can get Lonzo Ball healthy, which again, that's an unless. And if you're being honest about it, even if he does come back, how long does it take for him to get to 100%? And he's injury prone. Does it happen again? Anytime he has knee soreness now, you're going to be worried, and rightfully so. It has plagued him through these past 2 years as a Chicago Bull. Started a little bit in New Orleans when he was a Pelican. With the Lakers, he had ankle injuries. He goes to the Pelicans, he has ankle injuries, some knee tightness, as well. Things are just sore, achy anytime he starts to take off and run. He gets to the Bulls, more injuries, and the knees started to become a huge problem for him. And they've done so many. I think he's done like 3 surgeries on his knees that's given him problems. And the fact that the rehab is still taking this long, it'd probably be smart to kind of move on. I love DeMar DeRozan. I think that's probably, the most meaningful guy on your roster, but he's got just 1 year left on his contract. So DeRozan, his future with the Chicago Bulls is certainly anything but set in stone. He is a guy that is still good enough to win a ring, that could be probably that second best guy on a team, maybe even a third best guy. Looking at how the league is now, he's probably looking at this point in his career to be the third best guy on his team if he wants to win it all. Now, he can be the best guy on his team and he can be the second best guy on his team, but those would probably be teams where he's not winning it all. You look at the model of what teams are doing today outside of the Denver Nuggets, it's pretty much big threes. You look at the Celtics, you had Jaylen Brown, you had obviously Jason Tatum, phenomenal young player who knows what his ceiling is at this point in his career. Then you add in Kristaps Porzingis, again, not a superstar, but a good player. But the big one, you had Drew Holiday in there as well. And Drew Holiday, he's going to be that third guy for him, right? Not the superstar. He's going to be that third guy. You go over to the Phoenix Suns, they got a bunch of star players. You go Kevin Durant, you go Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. One of those guys is going to have to be the third guy. And that's kind of the model of the league now. So many teams look like that where you have these elite players, but someone's going to have to take a back seat. So I do think that, the Bulls, there's no real timeline for DeMar DeRozan here. There's no real reason to double down on him unless you're just looking for competitive basketball, because that's one thing DeMar DeRozan will at least give you. But it should honestly kind of make him a prime candidate for one of the guys they look to off-haul potentially during the season. And again, Zach LaVine, Vucevic, those are guys who can do it as well, but I don't think you'll probably get a lot for Nikola Vucevic. And with Zach LaVine, he's still young enough that I'd imagine he's the guy you want to keep around. He's been there long enough. He's kind of the identity of that team as far as the Bulls go, just because he's been there the longest, and he's still young. He's still got a lot of raw talent in him that I think still needs to be polished up. So if you can get some veteran or some other star players around him, similar age, you can actually build this thing out to scale it to a championship level team. But obviously this year, they're just not there, So realistically, when I'm looking at the Bulls, I'd put them anywhere between 20 to 15. 15 might even be pushing it in terms of the preseason rankings. They just don't necessarily have the pieces. The injuries have really plagued them through the years, and it's just not going to be a great year for them. So again, being a Bulls fan, that's kind of my assessment of the Chicago Bulls heading into this 2023-24 season. And if you have your teams out there, you want to get an assessment on your team, hear my thoughts. If you disagree with me, chime in. 402-464-5685. And again, you can always do that on the streams. You can do that through Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Allo, Channel 951. All of those are up for you guys to check out. Great way to put a face to the voice. Again, Harrison going solo all the way up until 10 o'clock. So doing this, we'll just kind of go ahead and we'll only do the top 10 on this segment. I did the Bulls in there because obviously being a Bulls fan, wanted to kind of get their assessment in there. But realistically, kind of looking at this list right now, and this is shout out to the Ringer. They have a lot of great stuff on here. They have the Philadelphia 76ers at 10, right? Last season's record, 54-28. Being 10 seems about right to me. You know, they're good enough to where they certainly should be in the playoffs. You still got James Harden. You still have Joel Embiid. What version of James Harden is in another debate entirely. Is he going to be happy to be there? Does new head coach Nick Nurse, what kind of waves does he make? There's one thing going for this team this year is how much do you put in the coaching? Because a lot of these coaches today, they move around a lot and they aren't necessarily indicative of winning a championship ring, right? Unless you have Steve Kerr that's building a dynasty, unless you're the Miami Heat, Eric Spoelstra, unless you're Greg Popovich, there isn't a ton of coaches that I personally believe give you a massive edge. When I think of coaching in the NBA today, they certainly have an effect. But I think because of that skill level you see in the NBA, the understanding of the game, the IQ that the players on the court already have, that coach, they make a difference, but it's marginal. And some coaches like Nick Nurse, they can be a little more than marginal just because of the way they see the game. We saw it with the Toronto Raptors. He's kind of the guy credited. I shouldn't say credited because he's not the first one to do it. But certainly in that playoff run when they had Kawhi Leonard with the Toronto Raptors, he brought out some zones that was kind of dated out of the league. No one was really doing that stuff anymore. And he brought it back in some intense playoff situations, which, again, kind of takes some guts to go ahead and try that without looking like a fool, because if that thing just gets torn apart right away, no one's looking at Nick Nurse like a genius. Everyone's thinking, what the hell are you doing trying to run a 2-3 zone in the NBA? And now we're at a point where you're seeing it a lot. Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat, coaches took notes. It's still an effective defense, even at the NBA level, but only in certain spurts, right? You're not going to be, that's not going to be your identity. You're not going to be a Syracuse in the NBA and purely played a 2-3 zone. But what he did do was he was creative. He kind of opened the box a little bit for other coaches to take note of, and you do see more zone. And I think Nick Nurse should get some credit for that, because again, he proved it at a massive stage, high clutch situation. He said the zone can work. In his offense, he gets credit for kind of being innovative on the offensive end of the court. And obviously, we talked about the defense. So with the Philadelphia 76ers, Nick Nurse can be that marginal piece. Again, marginal, that just pushes them over the edge. Because I think when you get to the playoffs, that's what you're talking about. All the teams in the NBA playoffs, they're good teams. They're in the playoffs for a reason. They know how to win games. How can you get that edge? The coaching should not be forgotten. I started off saying it is marginal, but in the playoffs, that's what's going to win you those series. That just small marginal difference where you're getting outcoached. That's where I think Nick Nurse can actually have a very positive effect on this Philadelphia 76ers team. He's well respected. At least I'd like to believe so, kind of on his success, how he's been able to run things over in Toronto. Yes, it's been a bit of a fall down since they won the championship. But a lot of that, too, to me, kind of comes to the draft. You get guys like Pascal Siakam. You're not necessarily totally certain on what you should do. Is he the key star player they're going to use to continue pushing that franchise forward? Because you're paying him a lot of money. So trading him is going to be tough because that's a big dollar amount on his name. And he's not necessarily your premier players in the league. So I think that the way they handled their contracts, I think that's kind of more of the downfall of that Toronto Raptors team. But I do think Nick Nurse with Philadelphia 76ers, I do like that hire. Hopefully he can get a guy like James Harden under wraps. You heard it before. He was never going to play for Daryl Morey again. He's a liar. Well, James Harden's a liar too because he's still playing for him. Moving on. Miami Heat. They have him at number 9, and I don't actually agree with that. I think if they would have got Damian Lillard, that was going to be the big piece for him. But they lost Gabe Vincent. They lost Max Strus. Both those guys walked for nothing. They didn't really make a push for Bradley Beal. They wanted to get Damian Lillard, but that one just fell short. Now you kind of got some unproven prospects on the team. And having them at 9, I would love to know the reasoning behind it. I keep going on this rant that why the Miami Heat run was special is because we will not see it again. Now, the Miami Heat, if they come in here at the 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, I won't be surprised if they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But the 8th play-in team, they weren't just the AC, they were a play-in team that had to win 2 games. So they were sitting at the 9th spot. They lost the first one. They were at the A spot, lost the first one, so they had to play again, and they would beat the Bulls clutch with about 3 minutes to go to kind of solidify themselves into those playoffs. But that offense was not good. They miraculously bumped up all their numbers significantly in the playoffs. And then once they kind of got to the Nuggets, the numbers started coming back down to equilibrium. They're coming back to their true shooting numbers. That was a team that couldn't shoot the 3 ball to save their life. And miraculously, and I keep using that word miraculously because it was, you're not going to see it again with a team that struggles so bad offensively. Just flip it on the switch in the middle of the game in a play-in game at that. It was a cool run to watch, but number 9, way too high for me. I know they were 44-38, so only 6 games above 500 last year. Them at number 9 for preseason rankings, it's just way too high for me. I don't like them there. I honestly see them as probably middle of the pack team, like 15th seed, just because of Jimmy Butler. If Jimmy Butler isn't on that team, I'm looking in the 20s. Bam Adebayo is great, but other than that, you don't necessarily have a ton of help on that team. Moving on here at number 8, and this will be the last one here before we go to break. Los Angeles Clippers. Last season's record, 44-38. A little bit of fool's gold there. Injuries plagued that team a lot. So when you don't have a healthy Kawhi Leonard, you don't have a healthy Paul George, 2 of the best defenders at the wing position in the NBA today, that's tough. You let Russell Westbrook kind of have to handle the rock. And again, Russ Westbrook's okay, but it's very obvious he's not the same guy that he used to be. He was a detriment to kind of winning basketball at this state of his career. How he plays the game has to fit a team perfectly. He's still not very good on defense. He's a liability on that end of the court, again, which is why it made Kawhi Leonard and Paul George being just kind of in and out throughout that season such a big deal. Russell Westbrook, defensively, is just not good. He really struggles to hold up on his end of the court. And again, it's not like he's the only guard that does that. Damian Lillard, for all the hype he's getting right now with the Milwaukee Bucks, which is respected and is deserved, he has never played a good season of defense. He consistently struggles on that end of the court, and struggle might even be the wrong word. He just doesn't give his full effort on that side of the court. Being undersized, obviously it's a detriment on top of that. And when you're not giving the effort mixed in with the size disadvantage, that's a world of woe. So Damian Lillard, a guy that, again, kind of like Russell Westbrook, struggles on defense. The only difference is that Damian Lillard offensively is a menace. He can stretch the floor out. Russell Westbrook, he can't. That is going to be a packed lane when he's out there. Anytime Russell Westbrook takes a 3, the defense is saying thank you. So again, I do like number 8 for the pure fact that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are back there. Russell Westbrook, he's still kind of going to be that swing piece to where if they're actually going to make a title run, they're going to need a much better season out of Russell Westbrook. They're going to need consistency. They're going to need defense. They're going to need high IQ from him. All things that he hasn't necessarily done in his career. He's done a lot of great things in his career, but being that essential key, glue guy, role player, he just hasn't been that. That hasn't been his MO. He's been the one-man wrecking crew on the court. And with a team like the Clippers, I still think 8's probably fair for them, but a lot of it definitely falls on Russell Westbrook's shoulders and how is he going to perform this season. With that being said, though, we do got to go ahead and throw it to our first break here. I'm Harrison Arens, Ticket Weeknights, going solo all the way up until 10 o'clock. I'll throw it to break and talk to you guys in a little bit.
This is where it happens. Long hikes with friends, kayaking adventures with family, more horseback riding, zipline gliding, rock face climbing, hammock camping fun than you could ever imagine. And it's all outdoors, amongst the trees and across the prairie, here beneath Nebraska skies. Plan an outing today at yournebraskaadventure.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it. Slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it. Slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
I'm Chris Jackmick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is "My job is people, everyone is my business." But unfortunately, in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jackamick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
I'm Christy. I used to smoke cigarettes. I had smoker's cough and severe shortness of breath, and I knew I had to quit. Then I tried e-cigarettes, but I just ended up using both. I really didn't start to get better until I quit smoking completely. My tip to you is just cutting down on the number of cigarettes you smoke isn't enough.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza. The big one. All the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
This is how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you wanna come and text us,
If you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music,
This is Mommy's jam.
then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Getting experience to jumpstart a meaningful career can be difficult, and education can cost a fortune. Luckily, AmeriCorps can be the solution. With AmeriCorps, you'll earn a stipend and education award while helping people. Plus, you'll gain professional skills and make connections to help you build your career. If you're ready to start a career you can be proud of, visit serve.nebraska.gov/service to find a program for you. Paid for by Serve Nebraska, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job,
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner? Or a 14-year-old girl who signs up to every after-school activity, not to make friends, but just to get something to eat? Or a retiree who fell ill and had to choose
between getting medicine or groceries.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hungered in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Tune in to 93.7 The Ticket as soon as the clock hits 0 for the Jay Foreman postgame show. Listen to expert analysis from the Husker Hall of Famer, an 8-year NFL veteran for 90 minutes after the game. The Jay Foreman postgame show, sponsored by Tanner's Bar and Grill, Vinny Kreekak, and Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Back to The Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome back in. Harrison Arens live in studio on a rainy, kind of dreary Thursday night out here. It does look like the rain's dissipating a little bit, but nonetheless, we're still going all the way up until 10 o'clock. And just saw something pretty interesting. Kevin Durant, as we're talking hoops here, commented on a Matt Rule. He quote tweeted a tweet from Will Compton, obviously Husker alum, and it was the pregame speech from Matt Rule with the quote at the end, "If we die, we die." And it is an awesome pregame speech from a head coach. Definitely one that gets your blood going. If you haven't seen it, it's all over Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, probably on Instagram as well, any social media. It's an electric speech. I saw it earlier this morning, but again, I saw later today, KD just tweeted out, quote tweeted it, saying, "This is it." And KD, a little bit cryptic as always, but gives me hope, right? That a guy like Kevin Durant saying this is it on a Matt Rule pregame speech. And again, go check it out. If you have it, it's all over social media right now because it is just that electric. If it's reaching the ears of Kevin Durant, you know what I mean, that it is making some waves on social media. So again, if you guys do want to switch gears and talk Husker football, feel free to do so. We can answer any of those questions you guys may have. 402-464-5685. But I'm going to keep rolling on here with the NBA, considering it is a bye week for the Huskers. Again, we can talk ad nauseum about what do they need to do during this bye week. What does that bye week need to look like? Who do we need to see on offense? Obviously, a lot of playmakers hurt. Who do we need to see on defense? Will Luke Reimer get back on the field? Questions. So if you want to dive into that, feel free. 402-464-5685. We can try to answer as many of those as we can. Moving on here, we left off with the Los Angeles Clippers. And again, these are preseason rankings. And if you want me to get my team in there, or excuse me, your team in there, just shoot it in the text line. Give me name, your team, and I'll give my honest assessment on where I see them on these way too early preseason rankings. But we do have some preseason going on right now. And I should shout out Delano Banton for the Boston Celtics, former Nebraska player. He dropped 20 points in his preseason game, and he looked pretty good doing it too. A lot of moves. I understand that it's preseason, but a lot of what he was doing just looked like natural growth out of a guy that's getting a better grasp of the game. Obviously has that height advantage at the guard position, can really be a tough mismatch on a lot of players. And that's what you're seeing in the preseason. A lot of these preseason players, yes, it's kind of their first taste of what does it feel like to play on a court that is full of multiple pros. I say multiple pros, not all pros, because obviously preseason, some of those guys are hoping to get signed on to the pro team. But still, you're dealing with some elite talent there. And what Delano Banton is showing that with his size, he can be a serious mismatch problem. And obviously we've seen that kind of throughout his run. But nonetheless, what you saw with the Celtics, it feels like steady growth, steady confidence on his game, and might be a year to kind of tune into the Boston Celtics if you're trying to watch some former Huskers, because I do think he'll get some reps out there. Just kind of the way he's playing that preseason. Again, it can all change. He could throw up a stinker in the next one, but right now he's looking solid. So obviously, want to shout out Delano Banton, former Husker alumni, great basketball player when he was here. And again, I talked about before, but Fred Hoiberg, we heard it from Sam Hoiberg, a bit of a revolutionary coach. And again, this is why I will keep giving him time. With Fred Hoiberg, what he has done in the NBA, getting compared to guys like Brad Stevens, getting told by multiple people that he's kind of this revolutionary offensive coach that a lot of NBA teams, if you watch them, Fred Hoiberg A lot of those offenses, he kind of started that. At Iowa State, he was responsible for a lot of that innovative basketball. Then obviously with the Bulls, he's got a lot of respect. And I'm not one to listen to all the veterans, players, coaches that have been in the league who praise Fred Hoiberg highly, highly touted for his basketball IQ and mind. That's not something to take lightly. Understand what Nebraska basketball has been. Understand how hard it is to get players come to Nebraska in a place that has never seen basketball success. We like to call to that Tim Miles run basketball success. And Tim Miles deserves credit for what he was able to do to kind of get that program up and running again. But other than that, it is not a lucrative destination for players to show up to. And what Fred Hoiberg's done is he sent Isaiah Roby to the league. He sent Delano Banton to the league. He sent Bryce McGowan to the league. Those are three guys that got sent to Delano Banton. Three guys right there that went to the league under a Fred Hoiberg offense that, despite the wins and losses not always being great, it's getting better. And I do think that with time, in this season in particular, I do think we'll see some flashes of this is a team that truly is getting the foundation down. And hopefully you put some good wins under your belt. That'll lead to better prospects. And Fred Hoiberg, he gets those players in. I would love to see, with a guy that's credited with the kind of basketball IQ that he has, what does that look like? Once this program gets off and running, once he does, make some noise in the Big Ten tournament, starts getting the respect of the conference. Because again, you look at those preseason rankings for Nebraska basketball, we're sitting at 12th. Wisconsin had the exact same conference record as we did last year, and they're sitting at 5. Now, that's not a slight against the Big Ten preseason rankings. If you're being honest, it's fair. Nebraska basketball consistently has fallen in those depths. Wisconsin, bad year, but that's typically not where they're at. So if you're Nebraska, you need to have a good year, an improvement, get to over 500 in Big Ten play. That should be a big-time goal, and start making some noise. Then you'll start turning heads on recruits that are maybe thinking about going to Iowa, Wisconsin, whoever it may be. They'll look at Nebraska. It's not like the Big Ten doesn't have good players. Unfortunately, those players just haven't always been landing in Nebraska. So with Fred Hoiberg in this season, I do hope to see a lot of growth. But again, I got on a little tangent there. I get excited for Nebraska basketball. Again, it's right around the corner. And obviously we have the show, Sam Hoiberg, Jeff Grace III, Walk On Weekly. Great name for the show. Those two great guys as well. But it's right around the corner. And I'm just very excited to see, what does the product look like for Fred Hoiberg going in to this season with the depth that is there, especially at that guard position. He's going to have some flexibility on how he wants to play the game. And a guy like Fred Hoiberg, again, you give a guy like that flexibility, he's proven he can throw some new wrinkles at teams and just really make them struggle. But moving on here, we'll keep this going on the preseason rankings for the NBA. At number 7, Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant. This is going to be dependent on Ja Morant a little bit. Obviously, he's going to be out for the first 25 games of the season. No surprise there. Obviously, the gun scenarios of him constantly being caught with an illegal firearm. 25 games feels light, considering how fast those two offenses were back to back. It looked like he didn't learn anything from the first one. So to do it again and get such a light suspension for it, only 25 games, that's pretty damn good if you're the Memphis Grizzlies. That's a lot less than I thought it'd be. I honestly thought it'd be closer to half the season, just the way Adam Silver was building that up. He felt like he was going to put the book on them. But they obviously new acquisition, Marcus Smart. That's the key one, right? I do think that makes that defense kind of a nightmare. You're going to have someone harassing you on the defensive end of the court, and you better have one on the other side because we've seen what Ja Morant looks like. So after 25 games, could be a bit of a bumpy start, but they still have a ton of young, good players that I don't think they're going to be absolutely dead in the water until he gets back. That's a good enough team to get some wins under the belt. So 7 feels fair to me. Moving on. Number 6, Golden State Warriors. Last season's record, 44-38. That's one where it's a respect thing. Obviously, the addition of Chris Paul makes a huge difference. That is some trade flexibility from that as well. If they have a point in the season where they see a team that needs Chris Paul, they might be able to kind of make a move on that. But I will say this. I don't know if they should. I think Chris Paul on that Warriors team is scarier than people realize. Chris Paul's basketball IQ is off the charts. What do you think about him personally? I don't really care about. He's a good player. He's a fantastic player, especially at that guard position. He's the guy that unlocked DeAndre Ayton, the guy who was struggling to find his footing in the NBA. That was just this athletic phenom, but for whatever reason, his stats were just bad. Spends a couple years with Chris Paul, and all of a sudden, still not the player we thought he was going to be, but a drastic improvement in a very short amount of time. Chris Paul on that Warriors team, you put him up with a team full of players that have extremely high team chemistry, a coach in Steve Kerr, who, again, much like Fred Hoiberg, kind of an innovative mind when it comes to offenses. He's the guy that said, hey, Steph Curry, yeah, just take a bunch of threes. Like, analytically, if you're making them at this clip, why wouldn't we predicate our offense on the three-point shot? So situations like that, when you have a guy like Chris Paul, high basketball IQ, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, all those guys have been playing in the league for a while, and that team chemistry is off the charts. You got a guy like Chris Paul on top of that who's going to be able to pick up the schemes. He's going to be able to pick up on the team chemistry, what players like to do and what they don't want to do. Again, we saw that with Ayton, right? He picked up immediately what does Ayton need to elevate his game. And he figured it out in a very short amount of time. What does that look like for the Warriors? That's one where the Warriors at 6 seems fair. But the way I kind of look at Chris Paul, I might even switch these two. I'd put him at 5, and I'd probably put the Lakers at 6. Moving on, though. They have the Lakers at 5. I'm looking at the Ringer here. Ringer, if you like NBA content, the Ringer has a ton of it. They also have covered other sports. Go check it out. But I do have to give them credit since I am go ahead and using this preseason list from them. They have the Lakers at 5. I put them at 6. But nonetheless, last year, 43-39. Tough one. Obviously, injuries. LeBron being out, that's going to cause some losses for you. But the biggest part was those the middle of the season acquisitions, getting a Rui Hachimura. That was a big one for him because Rui Hachimura added so much to their game because he was a big that could stretch the floor for Anthony Davis, and we saw it in the playoffs. He was hitting 3 after 3 after 3. Rui Hachimura is a great player that not a ton of people are always caught on because, again, he was on the Wizards. Not necessarily a city where you're going to get a ton of buzz. You got to be John Wall level. And even then, the hype around him faded pretty quickly. So Los Angeles Lakers, I'd put them at 6. I think 5's fair as well. I will say, I've said it before, I think last year in the Western Conference, they were the second best team. They were the team that they pushed the Nuggets every game. And yes, I know they got swept. But again, that was Jokic hitting insane shots to kind of close those games out for him. Moving on here, though, because we are running out of time, we'll go ahead and move on to number 4, and we'll save the last 3 for the final segment. At number 4, Phoenix Suns. That one, I'm all there for that one. Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. Not a lot to talk about there. Obviously, they get some new acquisitions as well. Jusuf Nurkic used to be Portland Trailblazers, was part of that big trade that would get Drew Holiday out of Milwaukee onto Portland and then eventually onto the Boston Celtics. That was all part of that deal right there. So then again, you have Frank Vogel. He's going to be the first time at his coaching for the Phoenix Suns. He's got an NBA ring with the Lakers. So again, I liked Frank Vogel. I never thought Frank Vogel should have got fired from the Lakers. That was one where I'm like, okay, you wanted these players, and now you're going to blame Frank Vogel for not winning with the players that you gave him when you traded away all those key asset role players that he was winning with. That one drove me nuts. Frank Vogel should have never been fired. I thought that was a mistake from the Los Angeles Lakers, but he's going to have his first shot coaching the Phoenix Suns. Could be interesting there, but yeah, that one is just they got talent. Hands down, they got a lot of high-scoring offense players. We'll go ahead and throw it to our final break here. Again, I'm Harrison Arns going solo all the way up until 10 p.m. Talking hoops here. Feel free to join in. 402-464-5685. We'll go to break. Talk to you guys in a little bit.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric is the call I make when I have a need for plumbing services. Whether it's for my home or office, if I need a repair to a water heater, softener, or even my garbage disposal, I know I can count on Action to help. In one simple call, their amazing customer service team promptly schedules a service call, often getting to my needs within a day. Action delivers honest quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor.
Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Años. Cuando me dijo que se le estaban olvidando las cosas, fue difícil. Un día me dijeron que pintara el marco del lado por dentro y pinté el lado de afuera.
Yo le diría a la gente que le diga a su familia lo que está pasando con él.
Si algo se nota diferente, podría ser Alzheimer. Es momento de hablarlo. Visita alz.org/nuestras historias para saber más. Un mensaje de the Alzheimer's Association y the Ad Council.
Adoption of teens from foster care is a topic not enough people know about, and we're here to change that. I'm April Dinwiddie, host of the new podcast, Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Each episode brings you compelling real-life adoption stories told by the families that live them with commentary from experts. Visit adoptuskids.org/podcast or subscribe to Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families and the Ad Council.
This is how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you want to come and text us.
If you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music,
This is Mommy's jam.
then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People City Mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
Tune in to 93.7 The Ticket as soon as the clock hits 0 for the Jay Foreman postgame show. Listen to expert analysis from the Husker Hall of Famer, an 8-year NFL veteran, for 90 minutes after the game. The Jay Foreman postgame show, sponsored by Tanner's Bar and Grill, Vinny Kreekak, and Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Back to The Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, wrapping things up here. Final segment again. I'm Harrison Arens going solo for about 5 more minutes here as we kind of wrap up some NBA basketball. And again, it's always kind of great to come to sports, hang out, relax, media. I'm not going to go into it. I'm sure everyone's aware. It's been crazy. It's been absolutely crazy, everything that's kind of been popping out of the woodwork, what's real, what's fake. We're not going to dive into that. That's the best part about sports radio. no feelings, right? If there's feelings, it's emotional, and we all understand it's a game at the end of the day. So moving on here with the NBA way too early preseason rankings. We got the Milwaukee Bucks at number 3 on the Ringer. And if I'm being honest, they're at number 2 for me. I'll just go ahead and quick give you the 1, 2, 3 in the Ringer. I'm glad they have the Denver Nuggets on 1. I totally agree. So number 1, Denver Nuggets. Number 2, Boston Celtics. Number 3, Milwaukee Bucks. Way too early preseason rankings. We'll start with number 3, Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, Giannis paired with Damian Lillard sounds like an absolute nightmare. You still got LaMarcus Aldridge on there. You still got Chris Middleton. You still got Brook Lopez, Splash Mountain, one of my favorite nicknames in the league. I don't know how you're going to protect that. So you got plenty of rim protection, but really, I think the key guy for them is probably going to be Jay Crowder. You know, can you get Jay Crowder to be beneficial to you on the defensive end of the court, or are they going to kind of lean young with some of your younger guys? Someone on that roster is going to have to hop in and be another wing stopper. You know, Giannis is going to be able to kind of cover the ground around the rim, that power forward position, but you're going to need probably one more key defensive player. Nitpicking here, obviously one of the favorites to win it all, but when you're getting to the elite of the elite, you have to start nitpicking. And I think if I had to pick one problem with that roster, they have the 3-point shooting. They have the ability to attack the rim pretty much at a will, set up a pick and roll with Damian Lillard and Giannis at the top of the key, run some actions off that. Something's going to open up there. Defense, wing, that's all I got. That's really all I got for them. They are going to be a hell of a team to stop. Number 2, Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics, they got a seismic shift in their entire roster, right? You get a guy in Drew Holiday. Now you also have Robert Williams III. You have Kristaps Porzingis. So again, that's going to help a lot. You lost Grant Williams and Malcolm Brogdon, but you got a bunch of draft picks back in the future, and you did get some guys kind of fill in those key spots. So they're able to save their future, moving Malcolm Brogdon and Grant Williams. At the same time, elevate the roster they have now, getting a guy in Drew Holiday who's ready to win a ring, getting a guy in Kristaps Porzingis who's just eager to prove himself on a contending team. You obviously have some players on there, Al Horford, Derek White. They're going to kind of round out the depth on that team. The biggest thing for me is I just don't know why it hasn't happened yet for them. Mentally, there is a wall when they get to that Eastern Conference Finals. It has been 1 year, has been 2 years, it's been three consistent years to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they fall short. Not only do they fall short, it's happened a couple times in Game 7. So with the Boston Celtics, mentally, for me, it's just mentally, can you finish it out? I will say it again. They lost to a 2-3 zone from the Miami Heat last year because they couldn't hit shots. They're a good shooting team. All they had to do was start knocking home some 3-point bombs, and that 2-3 would fizzle out immediately. But they couldn't. They bricked it. They couldn't get fast enough ball movement. So anytime they even tried to attack the rim to get something going, there wasn't enough ball movement. It just looked like they got in their head that for whatever reason, they could not get it out of their own way. And you give credit to the Heat for coming up with that game plan. But again, it was a 2-3. They just needed to knock some shots down, and that's 3 years in a row they've fallen short. So to me, it's not even so much about the talent. They've had talent to get there before. Now they're even better in terms of talent on paper, just mentally. Can you finish mentally? It's the hardest thing to do in the league is close out games, and that's what that team's been lacking. Number 1, and I totally agree with this one, Denver Nuggets last season, 53-29 overall record. I think it might have been the number 1 record in the NBA or just short. They did drop a bunch of games once that number 1 seed was clinched in the Western Conference. Makes sense. Why exert yourself? People were freaking out about that. I knew it was just because they were heading in, making sure they're healthy into the postseason. Denver Nuggets should be number 1. And why they should be number 1, as I say it over and over and over again, Nikola Jokic is by far, in a way, should be the favorite for the MVP again. What he is able to do on the court has not been matched. No one can stop him. No one can predict him. And energy-wise, he's a bit of an anomaly. Dude does not run out of energy. For looking like one of the most unathletic guys out there on the court, he's bringing the ball up the court over and over and over again. He's playing much better defense than he was earlier in his career. And offensively, you know what you're getting. You want to stop his Shot creation, his ability to score, that's fine. He'll pass. The biggest thing for stopping Jokic is really how many mind games can you play with him? Keep trying to get him to feed the other guys before he takes over, because you've seen that where teams try to force him. And I shouldn't say that, because you do hear this. This isn't necessarily a real game plan. Like, yes, it's one of those things, take away the pass, but you can't really scheme that up. It's just kind of an awareness thing. But nonetheless, when you do take away the passing lanes and he is forced to take over and shoot more shots, not necessarily a bad thing either. Again, there's no real recipe in slowing Jokic down. And Jamal Murray, people keep ignoring the fact that he's been consistently one of the best playoff players in the league. Every year he's healthy in the playoffs, he's been one of the best. So again, that's why the Nuggets should still be the favorite. Jamal Murray's shot creation, assisted with Nikola Jokic. Aaron Gordon is a perfect fit for that team. Michael Porter Jr., sharpshooter, still hasn't hit the ceiling for him. If he has a good season, you're in some serious trouble. So that's going to be it for me. Denver Nuggets should still be the favorite to win it all, but that's going to be it. I'm Harrison Arens, finishing it out here solo. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, starting with early break at 6 a.m. But that's going to be it for us. I'll talk to you guys later.